Mr. Skelly would like to lead us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have a moment of silence for our men and women in the armed forces. Thank you. Sir.
We have one participant.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Town Council. Steve
Good evening.
Levy, 55 Fordyce Road, New Milford, Connecticut. I'm here tonight just to ask for one item to be hopefully brought before the Town Council. I see on the agenda for this evening there's reappointments for the Bike and Trail Committee and Commission and the creation of a second Bike Committee too. Being a volunteer myself, I appreciate that everybody wants to volunteer. I do remember that there was quite a substantial amount of money allocated to the committee for research, possible routes, I thought routes, ideas, pathways that could be beneficial to the town. I was out of town when there was a meeting and a presentation on or by that committee, which I missed, but I'm concerned that they only looked at one route. I think we paid close to $130,000, $150,000 for research. I believe the current route brings us up one industrial corridor of New Milford and sends us down another industrial corridor of New Milford. I'm not really sure that that's really the route for the scenic bike and hiking trail to go. So again, as a taxpayer and to get bang for our buck, I would just wonder if McNeil and McBroom was actually going to make a presentation to the town council and actually the town as a whole as to what results they came up with, how they come up with those results, why that route was picked, why that route was more cost effective or beneficial to the town than selecting another route. Again, I appreciate everybody's volunteering. I appreciate everything that you guys are doing, and I wish you guys the best tomorrow with the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. The end of the list, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Walter. Next, for just a moment, Mike, is Mike Darba here?
Yes.
So this week is National Public Works Week. So what I'd like to do is if Mike could come up. I'd like to, on behalf of the Town Council, as this is National Public Works Week, next week, sorry, the 20th and the 26th, since we don't have a council meeting, it'll be a little early. I'd like to present this proclamation to our men and women at the New Milford Public Works. Whereas public works infrastructure, facilities, parks, open spaces, and public services are of vital importance to the health, safety, and well-being of the residents of the town of New Milford, and whereas such facilities and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of our public works professionals who operate and maintain the public buildings, roads, parks, and infrastructure town-wide, and whereas it has been demonstrated that public works provides critical response capabilities, experience, and support to all levels of government and town agencies in times of natural and man-made disasters, and whereas it is the public's interest for the citizens and civic leaders of this community to gain knowledge and to maintain a progressive interest in the public's works needs and programs and employees. And I am now, therefore, I, Pete Bass, Mayor and the Town Council of the Town of New Milford, to hereby designate the week of May 26, 2018 as National Public Works Week. And we urge all of our residents to join with representatives of governmental agencies and the American Public Works Association in activities and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works employees and to recognize the substantial contributions of health and welfare they provide daily on a local and national level. I'd like to give that. So next we have the a recognition for the Thrift Mart, the Milford Thrift Mart, but they have asked if they could do it because they didn't have all of their membership. So we're actually going to do that at our June meeting. But I'd just like to say a quick word for the Thrift Mart. They are a wonderful asset to our town. They've given back a tremendous amount of money to our community. So I want to give them just a quick thanks anyway, but they'll be recognized at our first June meeting. Next, could I have an approval of the prior town council minutes?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
And 2 abstains.
Next is mayor's remarks, just a couple of items. First, on Friday, June 8th, everyone is invited to the grand opening of the New Milford Senior Center. For those that don't know, there's been a major renovation there. They've got an expanded dining room. They've got updated spaces. You can learn more about their programs and services. There'll be light refreshments. It's Friday, June 8th from 3 to 7 p.m. Next, I'd also like to say is I spoke with our Human Resources Director, Greg Bolero, and one of the things that has been on a lot of our public's attention, both on a national and a state level, is there's been lots of people that have been caught up in different types of issues, whether it be sexual harassment or whether it would be cybersecurity. So I've directed the Human Resources Director to come up with e-learning for our workers, our employees. This will be an annual thing. It's going to start this year. So in the particular modules that they will have, some of them will be sexual harassment, some will be fraud, some will be cybersecurity, and some will be specific to their job functions. So I want to thank the employees for beginning this effort, and I want the taxpayers and our citizens to know that we are going to be on the cutting edge, making sure that we're compliant year in and year out with these things. Next, I want to talk about the roundabout that has been on lots of people's minds. That's the road construction that is being done on Still River. I went out this morning with Lieutenant Larry Ash. I spoke to the Chief of Police this morning, and we are going to have a police officer there during rush hours to and from work to help expedite our commuters' day in and day out drive while we're going through this process. I'll continually update the council when we have council meetings and also through our social media sites as to the progress and how we're doing things. Also, next, for everyone, in the month of May, we also have a very wonderful ceremony in a way. It's our Memorial Day ceremony. It starts at 10 a.m. Monday, May 28th. I'd like to thank our veterans. I'd like to thank our Veterans Committee as they put this on every year. And kudos to them for putting on a wonderful event that we have. It starts at 10 a.m. Monday, May 28th on the front steps of the library. Next, I'd like to talk about the Board of Education. I met with the Board of Education on Friday, and this was concerning the shortfall from the state reduction in revenues for this year. So our benchmark was we had to come up with an additional $700,000 that we needed in savings this year. And I'm glad to report to the council that the Board of Education has assured me that their portion of this shortfall, they do have. So good news for us this year. We should be on target, which I'm sure our finance director will talk about. We should be on a pretty good path for the end of this year. I also spoke with the Board of Ed today concerning, as I spoke about a couple of weeks ago, about our continuing to work together for our capital project requirements. And the fact that if we looked at things together using economies of scale, there may be opportunities for us to save money. So some of the things that we're looking at now, we've gotten some numbers on oil tanks that are going to be required by both the town and by the Board of Ed. And also today we talked about roofs that are going to be need to be done. I was with Mr. Osipov. I was also with Kevin Moret, their facilities manager. Also with Anthony, their finance person, and Superintendent Josh Smith. And we all agree that working together and coming up with a capital plan that we all can feel confident moving in a rotation so that we all know ahead of our budget schedule, that'll be able for us to plan in a more efficient manner. So I thank the Board of Education for working with us on that. Also, charter revision is continuing to move forward. And for those that don't know what that is, the charter is our guideline, our guidebook, our constitution for our town. It kind of tells us what we can do. Charter revision has another meeting again. I believe it's on.
We have one Wednesday and one next Wednesday.
One Wednesday and one next Wednesday. If you can't make that meeting, you can always email the committee at charterrevision@newmilford.org. It's very important to get your input in, as I'm sure the revision committee would want to hear from you. Also, just real quickly, as all of our committees continue to move forward, our nonprofit subcommittee has met a few times. So we're working on coming up with a process for nonprofits to apply to the town for funding when we do have it in the particular budget cycle. The youth field subcommittee has met already, and we're working on a plan to bring before the council. All of our other committees, the community subcommittee has met for a community center. They continue to meet, and we'll be bringing in updates as they become available. So with nothing more, I'd like to move to the next agenda item. And that would be Greg.
Good evening. In April, we had a successful band sale of $7,360,000 at a net interest cost of 1.86%, which included a band's premium of $35,142, which was used to pay the interest due on the outstanding band financing. Eastern Bank was the successful bidder, and the funds are now in place for road construction. I have initiated cross-training of the finance department in the areas of payroll and accounts payable, so there'll be backup in both those positions. This is an ongoing process. With the assistance of the finance department, the view permit process is functioning, and online payments can now be accepted for building permits. Zoning, inland wetlands, and other departments will follow shortly. I'd like to give a special thank you to Olga, our comptroller, who spearheaded this initiative. The state legislature, as you know, has passed a bipartisan budget which includes an increase of the ECS for New Milford. Connecticut now has the dubious distinction of being first in the country at something. The state has once again been downgraded by Standard & Poor's. Factors initiating this response were above average debt, slow economic growth, high unfunded pension liabilities, job losses, and a recent history of drawing down financial reserves. I have initiated an upgrade for Munis, which will be functional sometime after the commencement of next fiscal year, and tomorrow will be loaded in our test environment to troubleshoot. Last week, the auditors were on site, and they did their preliminary field work, and their initial response was all was fine with our books. Now to our year-to-date budget report. April expenses year-to-date are 81.7% of budget, which includes encumbrances of $1,024,156. Excluding encumbrances, the town has expended 79.1% of budget, which is below where we should be at this time of year on a straight line basis, or 83.3% of budget. This is due to recent layoffs and attrition and salary lines primarily. Some of the outliers, or other words, over budgeted positions, will include trash pickup, unemployment compensation, dispatchers overtime, winter overtime, recycling overtime, telephones, and travel expense. On the revenue side of the budget, revenues are at 92.1% of budget. Taxes, as of April, are 99.66% of budget, which is absolutely fantastic. Both parks and building departments are running below budget. However, due to higher interest rates and a more aggressive investment strategy, the interest income is currently running $229,000 over budget to the good. At a recent GFOA meeting, George Raphael of the CCM indicated the state which funds town aid roads via bonding has not gone to the bond market for the second installment of this grant. If they do not do so, we have an additional revenue exposure loss of $281,018. Questions?
So Greg, I'm sorry. Can you just kind of dig in a little more into the details as far as the investments? So the investments are just for the town because the landfill settlement fund would be different, correct?
That's correct. The investments I'm speaking of are general fund investments exclusively. They do not include investments such as the waste management fund, which is in a different fund.
And that we were showing the last time you came before us is a loss right now.
Yes.
Thank you. Lisa?
Oh, okay. Can I go back to the beginning of, and I apologize for my voice, this is all I got.
Okay.
Can I go back to the beginning of your comments and some of the mayor's comments? So last we talked, we had a revenue shortfall from the BOE on the current year. We now have a plan to make that up, and then you snuck in a comment about the budget currently in front of the governor has some of the ECS money coming back, correct?
That's correct.
And that's for this year, not next year.
That's for next year.
It's for next year,
Next
okay.
year.
Sorry to put you on the spot a little bit, but in your opinion, given how we ended up coping with the shortfall this year in terms of the BOE share versus the town share, do you have an opinion on how, if that money comes back, it should be divvied up, even though it's educational cost sharing? For example, if
Yes, I do, and I was fairly vocal in the Board of Finance meeting that we should not use as much of the unassigned fund balance as we currently have in our budget. So this is my recommendation. You take it with, whatever. This is what I would do. I would take that excess money, bring it into the general fund, and don't forget, there's another wild card that's out there that everybody needs to be cognizant of. 2020, we have a reval schedule. It's going to cost anywhere from $700,000 to $750,000, and we do not have more than $38,000 earmarked for that. This is what I would do. I would earmark some of that money that would come in, if the budget's passed tomorrow, towards the use of that. I would assign it for that use, and the rest I would apply towards offsetting the use of the fund balance.
So
That's what I would do.
So not to put words in your mouth, but I think I hear you saying that we shouldn't go back to old structures and old ways, but we should take advantage of the hard work that we've done and then set aside that money for other expenditures we see coming and not live them off today.
That's a fact. I mean, this is reality. We're gonna have that reval and we have to do it. We're compelled to do it.
Yep.
And it's very expensive and we have not yet put much money aside for that. So, if this occurs, I would certainly take the money that we get extra from the state and assign part of that for the reval.
Now,
Otherwise, we're gonna have to budget for it.
yeah, can I jump ahead to 1819 just as a follow-on?
Sure.
So you mentioned the unassigned in the general fund. I still see a lot of confusion in the public about the current budget under vote and how the tax rate could stay the same in terms of a tax increase that we're voting on tomorrow, yet there were big changes, my words, by the Board of Finance. Do you mind just going through that one more time about the difference in the levels of unassigned fund usage between the Town Council recommended and the Board of Finance recommended?
Well, the add backs from the Board of Finance, rather than raising taxes, their plan is to finance it through the unassigned fund balance. The $702,000 more that they added back for the Board of Education and the town was $702,000. So to offset that, to balance the budget, they used an additional $702,000 of unassigned fund balance to balance the budget.
So that's rough math, 1.2 million coming out of our unassigned then, the
That's
current budget on the
correct.
table. And you just mentioned that Standard & Poor's downgraded Connecticut as a state for doing the exact same thing.
Exactly.
All right.
That's why I'm recommending the course of action that I am.
Yep.
Mike?
Okay, thank you.
And I don't know if it's a question for you or for us as the council. So if that money does come back at a later date, is it our group that decides it, or is it finance, or how does that work?
Depends on how the budget goes.
Say again?
Depends
Right,
on how the
let's
budget
say the
goes.
budget passes tomorrow, as is, and then we get another $1 million back from the state. How does that, who decides where that $1 million goes?
I will defer to Greg if he, go ahead, Greg.
I could only recommend. I'm not clear on who has the authority to reallocate that.
My assumption, and I could be wrong, because I think
talk
Greg and
about
I do this, is it's a non-anticipated revenue. So I believe it would come to council and Board of Finance as if the budget passed. If the budget failed, then the town council could change the revenue however they liked for the budget. And then it would just be the town council that would assume how they would treat it as they would the expense side of the budget.
But I have to caution, whereas the governor, number one, still has to sign the budget. Number
Correct.
two, we're getting a new governor in November. And frankly, we've had musical chairs with the state before. So I'm not saying, hey, that money's in our pocket, because guess what? If OPM and the budget office all of a sudden says, whoa, we're giving all this money back to everyone, but they didn't raise taxes. I haven't heard what they're doing on the revenue side of the equation to pay for these. So caution is a key word.
Matt, can you comment on that?
Yeah. Just, Michael, just state your question again, just so that
Well, I just want to know if the budget passes tomorrow and we get, the state gives us whatever amount, let's say $1 million back for state, for aid, whether
ECS, budget
Yeah.
cost sharing.
Well, the question's an important one. It's come up quite a bit since the Board of Finance recommended the budget to be voted on tomorrow. When the voters go to a vote, whether it's in a town meeting or in Milford's case, automatic referendum, they're voting on a spending plan. The Board of Finance, when they say that they're going to allocate a certain amount of fund balance or surplus, if you will, if that budget passes, that's really a promise that the voters are relying on, that is actually not obligated to be kept. I mean, there'd probably be lynching if it wasn't kept, but the voters are voting on an amount of money to spend. If the budget passes tomorrow, and also the town somehow buys the winning Mega Millions ticket tomorrow, there's not going to be a tax increase next year, because the mill rate can only be set by the fiduciary, which is the Board of Finance, after the voters approve a spending plan. As of course you know, if the were to hit July 1 without that, last year's mill rate would take effect until a budget passes. Does that answer your question?
Any other questions for Greg? So Greg, so just to be clear, with the Board of Finance taking 1.2 million from our unassigned, your recommendation was against that, and do you believe if we do that every year, that has the ability to negatively impact our bond rating?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, we'd still be within our
This year.
fund balance policy. However, you're starting off next fiscal year, 2020, in a $1.1 million home. How are you making that up?
And then just to be clear, when we had our, what was it, a $2.2 million shortfall for this current year?
Yes.
So Board of Ed came to, just so the numbers are clear between town and Board of Ed, Board of Ed allowed their capital reserve to transfer over, which was about 192,000, and then they committed to another 400,000 tonight. So the 2.2 million, they contributed a little under 600,000.
As far as I'm aware, they contributed $395,000, plus there was $55,000 that we were refunded for our general insurance, workers' comp through Karma, and that was counted towards their contribution. So right now, let me just grab,
So it's like 650 then?
well, I
Mm-hmm.
ran the Board of Education's numbers, and as of the end of April,
that they're getting shorted.
they have $1,854,351 unspent and unencumbered, with 2 months left to go in the fiscal year. I do believe they will meet their obligation of $395,000 more,
Plus the 55 years.
plus the 55.
So out of the 2.2 million, they're a little under $500,000 they contributed with the shortfall, and the town side made up the rest, or?
Well, it was the use of last year's surplus,
Which was
if you will.
192,000, right?
Yeah, 1.5.
So now we're back to 645.
Right? Plus the
No,
top
I'm saying Board of Ed.
Board
Out
of
the
Ed,
2.2 million, Board of Ed gave us the 395,
450,000.
plus the
Their
50.
target number was 450.
and they allowed us to use their capital reserve instead of putting it in the capital reserve. We used that to close the shortfall as well in our current fiscal year, correct?
Right.
So overall, it's about 650,000 out of the 2.2 million. So even though they represent about 60% of our budget, that they're providing.
You know, we're partners
About a
in this,
third.
Paul. You
No,
know.
I know, but I just want to be clear.
Yeah.
And then also the budget that was just approved by the state, they took 300 million from their income tax receipts that came in larger than anticipated, which likely isn't going to occur next year because of the tax changes. And then the Office of Fiscal Analysis provided an examination stating that after that budget year of 18-19, that there's going to be a $2 billion shortfall. So it's like
I heard
there's
1.76, but
okay,
yeah.
so we'll round it up to 2.
Right.
So let's say
Right,
so in essence, they're giving us this little bit of candy in an election year, which they give to every town and city. But the reality is, we're kicking the can down the road yet again at the state level, and it's likely that because no structural change was made yet again, that it wouldn't be surprising
Well,
to
yeah, we
face
may
a similar
find
sort of
ourselves-
scenario in another year.
Yeah, we may find ourselves in the same situation
Yep.
come 2020.
Yep. Thank you.
So that's why I caution against using the unassigned fund balance.
Yep.
Any other questions for Greg?
Oh, off agenda, so I apologize. Grant status? Do we have any news about maybe new upcoming grants with our new grant writer position?
Tammy gave me an update, and let's see. I tasked her with applying for the low SIP grant, which she did, and we should be receiving that shortly. She's been working with other departments, Parks and Rec for a $20,000 playground grant. Let's see. She lists a couple of things here. Federal Clean Water Act, $25,830,000 from Connecticut DEP. There's something about an Aetna Foundation cultivating healthy communities grant for $200,000. I believe she's looking to partner up with for next fiscal year. So, and a couple of smaller initiatives. Nothing really material, but
The SIP amount was how much? I'm sorry, I missed that one. The first one you mentioned. The SIP. Low SIP.
LoCIP? Oh, that's $351,500.
And are these all new grants or these renewals of existing?
Well, this was in our budget, but it still had to be applied for, and there's a process to go through to apply for it.
So it sounds like we've identified and maybe applied for 600,000 worth of new grants.
It's more than that.
No, those numbers were 600,000.
Well, LoCIP is in our budget. Actually, we're getting more than what was budgeted for. The state gave us. So by getting 351, we're probably getting $100,000 more than what we currently have in the budget.
And was that due to adding the position? So we had somebody bird dogging that we got the extra?
No, that came from the state.
All right. I'm curious as to, we invested in this position and we're banking on getting new grants we hadn't gotten before. So just curious how much we'd applied for to date.
Yeah, I mean, there's numbers here: 5,296, 2,500, 25,830, 200,000, but that's next year. The 351.5 is this year.
Could we maybe get that breakdown next town council?
We'll have
Actually, I'm going to have Tammy come and
we'll have her come to the next council
Okay,
meeting.
that'd be great. Thank you.
Paul?
You'd mentioned overtime for recycling, public works, and dispatchers, so I assume public works was because of winter storm events.
Right.
What was recycling and dispatch?
Recycling was this has been known throughout the year. Mike, I guess there was a grievance. Yeah, there's a grievance settlement. So it was.
So it's not like real overtime. It's
Well, it is.
well, I mean, it's not like
it was planned to be given to a manager, but they grieved it and won, so they're getting, the union's getting overtime as a result of winning the grievance.
So I'm not following that, I guess. So what is the? I thought.
Mike, you want to explain? You can do better than I could on this.
It had to do with Saturday overtime, and when we hired the recycling manager, we did not budget for as much Saturday overtime. They agreed, it was really a settlement. I don't believe it never went to arbitration, never went to formalized process. It was previous mayor had agreed to allow the Teamsters to continue to work Saturdays, more optional than mandatory, so we don't make or force people to work Saturdays, but if they opt to work it, we have to provide them that opportunity.
But I thought Saturdays was the time that we did 60% of our business at recycling.
We do quite a bit of business on Saturday, yes, definitely.
So,
We
all right. So just so I'm clear, so the
we have a
busiest
third
day of
employee down there,
recycling
though.
by far, it's optional for our two Teamsters to work.
It's optional for one overtime Teamster to get 4 hours of overtime on that.
Okay. Is that in our current budget? Have we budgeted for that?
For next year?
Yeah.
I honestly can't recall if we restructured that or not for next year.
Okay.
Paul?
I believe that the overtime was cut.
How about dispatcher?
Dispatch, that's an ongoing process where we were down 2 dispatchers, and as a result of their staffing needs, you have to call people in on overtime, and I think subsequently 2 dispatchers were hired, and I'm not sure the status of one of them there is
One of them,
one of them's not working out.
correct.
Yeah, so as consequence, to have those phones manned 24/7,
Yeah. No. Okay. Thanks.
that's a requirement.
Any other discussion with Greg? Thank you, Greg.
Greg, thank you.
Thank you.
Road closure.
Yeah, road closures, move to approve a temporary closure of the southern crossover on Main Street and the northern crossover over Main Street, Saturday, June 2nd, 2018, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. for the Women's Club Teddy Bear Festival.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Can we get that date to Katrina with the info so she has it? Thank
Sure.
you.
This is Homeland Security?
Yep.
You ready for that?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right. Discussion regarding this resolution as presented. It's resolved that the town of New Milford, Connecticut may enter into with and deliver to the State of Connecticut Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection, Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, any and all documents which it deems to be necessary and appropriate. And furthermore resolved that Pete Bass, as mayor of the town of New Milford, Connecticut, is authorized and directed to execute and deliver any and all documents on behalf of the town of New Milford, Connecticut, and to do and perform all acts and things which he deems to be necessary or appropriate to carry out the terms of such documents, including, but not limited to, executing and delivering all agreements and documents contemplated by such documents.
Any discussion? This is something.
Second.
Thank you, Walter. So this is just something that we continually do with the Homeland Security Grant. Really no changes when I spoke to the fire marshal. It's just completing the updated paperwork. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Tax collector, move to accept May 2018 refunds in the amount of $1,829.94, leaving a balance of $3,100.95.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Mayor's office.
Yep.
Bike and Trail Committee 2. Move to approve creation of a temporary committee called Bike and Trail Committee 2. This temporary committee shall consist of 5 members with a term of 6 months. Please note, per the town charter, temporary committees expire 1 year plus 1 6-month extension after creation. The Bike and Trail Committee the current Bike and Trail Committee expired on May 3rd, 2018. The Bike and Trail Committee 2 will be identical in scope to the Bike and Trail Committee number 1, as shown here, and I don't think you want me to read it. Can we just say as noted? Stephanie, is that fine with you? Is that fine with everybody?
Yep.
And that's it. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Paul?
Yeah, before we appoint this new, or create this new committee, I'd like the old committee to present what they did. I think it was in effect for 18 months. I know they were blessed with over $150,000 from the landfill settlement fund to prepare a plan. That hasn't been presented to us. I'd like to see what work was performed as part of that before we create this new committee, to see just what was created, how the process worked. I'd like to talk to the committee to see what things they focused on and not focused on based on their original charge. And does that then require us to modify this charge?
Katie?
I would like to see a breakdown of the expenditures, but even more so, what the vision is going forward. And I'd like that to be on a, should this committee be appointed, have that on a regular basis. It's not only a financial item, but it's also very visible and it entails public at large. So I think that's important.
Along those lines, one of the things that came to mind, and I agree with everything that was said, I just want to add to that, and I've talked with a couple of you about this, we've got all these teams and I call them teams, committees, I think of them as teams, right? But we don't really have any metrics, so it's interesting to read this charter about how the team is supposed to increase walking and cycling, and yet we don't have any stats on that. So, if people are going to invest their time and we're gonna invest our money, that would be interesting to have, and to benchmark in that second paragraph, you know, what is the usage currently of our parks and our walking trails, and then see the improvement year to year and know that our marketing efforts and our investments are paying off. And across the board, I'd just like to see our committees come up with some metrics that they're, you know, one or two that they're willing to, you know, put a line in the stand and say, yep, we got this accomplished in the last year.
All right, so we're not, just another comment, I didn't read the verbiage here, but I did question and ask the mayor, because this is exactly what they worked to the first time. And there are a couple of things in here that talk about how they're going to research and prioritize routes and trails that may be added to the trail and bicycle roadway map in the future. And I think the only way I could see that that's a good thing is if we know what's been done or what the vision is, because it's 5 or 6 people or whatever number it is, and you know, it's 28,000.
Mike?
I think a lot more important than the metrics, the other thing is the stumbling blocks that they're coming upon. Because I know that you talk to some of them and there's always something, and I think if they can report to us and say, we could get this done if this gets accomplished, like we get this easement, and use our power as a council to help get those things forward so we can get this thing moving. Because I mean, yes, that section downtown is nice, but you're not going to get in shape walking that section. You really need to get this thing going and started, and come up with a way to do it on a smaller budget, even if it does mean that some parts of it are going to have to go on the road a little bit until we can get those addressed, but get something started so we can get it moving. And you know, have them tell us, like, this is why we can't go forward here, and let us see if we can address it.
Doug?
Yeah, just for a sec, the first committee, is it, are these people on the, were on the first committee, they're on the second one?
Correct.
So basically they have all the knowledge, it's just a continuation, just, they're called a committee of 2, but they're the same as they were before.
Correct, and
So
then
what-
they were gonna come to the next council meeting and present
Okay,
to the council.
thank you.
Mike?
Have they spent the $150,000?
I think they did.
Yeah,
I think we talked about that during the budget process, that Malone and McBroom got a big chunk of change for it.
Yes, there was an alternate.
Make a motion to table
Is-
that?
Excuse me.
Oh, sorry, I'm
going to
here.
withdraw my second so we can make a motion to table this
No need.
and have, you know, the committee 1
Yep.
report to the council.
Katie is the-
So I'll withdraw my second.
You brought forth the motion to withdraw?
I certainly will.
Okay.
Just motion to
So-
table.
Yeah, so I'll have them,
Matt is,
Motion to
If there's a
table.
motion to table, there's no need to withdraw the second, the motion
But
is
it's
tabled.
fine, they
Right,
can.
so there's a
Okay.
motion to table.
second.
Who table, you and your motion table?
All
Yeah.
table.
any
And of course,
discussion?
Walter second, he's good at that.
Yeah.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next, we're gonna go to town-owned properties, discussion regarding 50 East Street and Peebler Hill Road, which is a Still Meadow property. So I'd just like to let you know that we have a couple of companies that have been interested in the 50 East Street property. One of them is here tonight, and that's Dakota property. They're the ones that have done the affordable housing next to CVS. So I just wanted to update the council that we do have an interested party. Just want to let you guys know that with your permission, I'd like to continue with the negotiations with Dakota. And if you had any questions as it pertains to right now, they are here in the audience, if you'd like to talk to them for a minute. Katie?
Welcome. Would you like to come up?
Pete, I'm abstaining because I've worked with him before.
Thank you.
Could you just introduce yourself? We don't know you.
Good evening. My name is Roberto Arista. I'm a principal at Dakota Partners.
Stephen Kaminsky, Dakota Partners as well.
Great. I'm going to ask this on behalf of many people who will watch this video who aren't sitting here, and they're going to, first thing they're going to say is, we know what you did with the, next to CVS there, the Barton building. What's your basic vision for the 50 East Street?
The vision is a bit rough right now because
I thought
we're
so.
just starting to study it.
Is it,
But
you're going to
plan-
keep the building? That's the first thing people ask.
Yes,
Oh.
yes. We would do a historic renovation of the school and then add a couple of buildings in the back. We think that might be about 75 units total. The school itself is probably 15 to 20 units in the school building.
Would additional buildings impact the parking for Theater Works?
Well, we don't know. It's obviously, we're thinking about a plan to preserve that, to help,
You're
to
aware
be,
that that's
yeah,
an
we are
important-
aware of that, yes.
That's great.
But we don't really know, the details yet, but we're happy to study it and accommodate.
Do you know how many spaces that they're using?
Depends on what production they have going.
I don't even know
But
their
I think it would,
capacity.
but I think it would be something that moving forward that we could talk to Theater Works. It was more, as we're moving forward to let them know, kind of get what their perception is and parking
We
requirements.
also noticed a helipad, and I'm assuming that doesn't
Yeah.
have to be there anymore?
No.
Okay.
Does the hospital use that at all?
Although it
The
advertised
hospital does use it now, but they use it differently.
Right.
Basically for brain traumas, now they use that to fly people down to, I believe, Yale for strokes, because now they've learned if you can actually get someone into treatment very quickly, the ability for a successful recovery with that is greater. So now Lifestar basically is doing that, flying down to Yale for that.
Pete, how often do they do that for the helicopter?
It depends on the need of the public.
3-4 times a year, maybe?
It was
A
brought
little bit
up
more than that.
a couple of years ago, when there was talk about selling the building, the prior mayor spoke to the hospital, and they said they could,
Do other ones.
well, not necessarily do without it, but land it somewhere else. I don't know.
We would
warehouse.
have to find another
Sponsor,
helipad
yeah.
in close proximity to the hospital.
So basically,
To do
they're
that.
taking most of the trauma straight to Danbury.
Yeah, so if it's a trauma, heart related or something else, they're gonna go by ambulance. Unless it's a crash that requires seconds, and then they load them up, put them there. But most of the time that now, from what I understand, according to the hospital with Lifestar, is you've got the stroke, and that's where they go, to Yale.
How much is the building on the market for?
Right now, we don't have a purchase price. There is an appraised value price of 1.6 million.
Right, so that hasn't changed.
Correct. So right now, we're negotiating, which I can bring more back to the council.
How much total property is it, Pete?
Thank you, 4.7 acres.
So your proposal is 2 more buildings in addition to the regular building?
To the,
correct?
yes.
So
to the
you'd have
school
3
building.
total
3 buildings.
of 75 units.
A total of 75 units, yes.
So obviously with math, 25 a unit building.
Wow. That's
Well,
bad.
the East Street
Approximately.
building would be bigger, would have more, he said, didn't he?
Well, he
say
said
that?
around 15 to 20.
Oh,
Yeah,
in
15, 20 in the schoolhouse.
Okay,
And 2 buildings in the back.
that would make up the difference.
It would make up the difference, right.
Is that currently zoned residential?
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Industrial.
Yes, it is.
It is.
We were under the impression we were gonna do an 830G, something like that. I'm not sure there's one allows it.
I'm looking
So
at
it's
our,
Open question?
I'm looking at
So-
our zoning person,
Oh,
saying,
sorry.
So Kathy?
former zoning enforcement officer.
What was the question, I'm sorry?
Is it zoned residential currently?
Yes, it's R20 zone.
20.
That's single family, right?
Yes.
So it's not zone appropriate, but we need, high density.
So how many units currently is it zoned for, if you do the math?
So if it's almost 5
Not
acres,
35.
1, 2,
10.
10.
Quite 75.
That's single family.
Yeah.
So have we, sorry for the whole question, so have we thought about the change to infrastructure and what the traffic would do if we end up with 75 families there off 202?
We would do traffic study.
That would be part of this. Yeah.
So we haven't done those yet? Okay.
This is very
No.
Preliminary?
This is-
correct, but I wanted to let the council know that
But
there
this
was
is-
an
it is-
interest.
It is falling into what not that we've changed, but we were talking about the plan of conservation development, that we were trying to do more of the cluster and more higher dense instead of having the big, the big plot, 1 acre zoning outside of town, which, in different ways, they're positive and negative, but, CVS has a waiting list, doesn't it? The one next to CVS.
There's always a waiting list.
Yeah, so I mean, it's that level of housing, and I know Willow Springs is pretty full. I know that level of housing is needed in this town. People you know, the affordability to live.
How many spots do you do per 75? Do you do two per unit?
Well, typically, our experience in these types of projects is about 1.3 per unit. So we probably propose between 1.3 and 1.5 per unit. We think 2 per unit is way too excessive. It'd be a sea apart.
Around 110?
Yeah, something like that.
So you need 110 parking spots for
Roughly.
75?
Yeah, that's what it would.
And you may have said this in the beginning when Pete was talking, that it's a percentage, is it senior or anybody?
It's
Is it like Barton?
It's like Barton.
Okay, and
yes.
what percentage would be in the affordable category?
80.
80%.
80?
Yeah. I was going to say the majority would be in the affordable category.
Do we actually get credit for that as the affordable?
You do, yeah.
Now, we also mentioned in here, it's got Still Meadow on there. Is that you guys also, or is that a different project? Okay.
Okay. Would be, Michael, did I cut you off again?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
My question was answered. Thank
Okay. Would it be impertinent to ask how much per unit you paid for the CVS property?
We paid, it was $1.1 million, I believe.
And how many units?
38 units. So I think that comes to roughly
About 30?
a little less than 30.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's all apartments, right? There's no. Right?
It's all
There's
apartments.
No, ownership there.
Yes.
And so would it be presumptuous to think that's the going rate for this?
Well,
offer as
I think if you compare the two, they turn out to be about the same because we would have to permit this property. And so that would cost some money. There's also remediation. And so when you add all that up, it's probably going to be about the same per unit.
How does the property management work? Do you guys go further on after it's built? Do you do the property management?
We own the property long term, but we do not do the property management. We hire professional property management
but you own
firm.
the property.
We own the property, yes, that's right.
And I believe you have quite a bit of experience in this. You also built one of the first, I think, maybe in Brookfield?
I think it was the first
The first one that
yes.
had a waiting list.
Yes.
Before you came up here, and there's
yes.
been a waiting list. So
that's correct.
Yeah, and you probably have a waiting list after this gets out from tonight for the East Street.
Love the way CVS looks, by the way. The property's next out.
Thank you. Thank you. We think it came out very well.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, sorry, Greg can warn you that I like the math. I like the numbers a lot. So at the CVS rate in 80 units, it'd be 2.1 million, thereabouts?
No, he was.
What I was saying is that the price we've offered does not, we have to add to that because there's permitting costs. When we bought the other property, it was already permitted. So there's a certain amount. And then this has remediation that we have to do. So you add it all together, and when all is said and done, you'd be at that $2 million level in terms of cost.
Plus the financial environment's changing. When we did Barton House, tax laws were different. Corporations were paying 35%. They're now paying 20%. We finance these with corporate tax credits, so they're worth less. We've got a significant loan from the state of Connecticut, which we don't anticipate being there next year with the change in administration. And interest rates are going up, so the whole environment's much different. I don't think you compare one piece of property to the other.
Mike?
I'm not sure why we're getting involved in their finances though. The place, it's a marketable place, they pay market for it, and they create a concept that we agree upon as a group. If they want to make a lot of money or barely any money, they're entitled to it. I just think we look at
I think what we need to look at, which is why I brought it to the council, so with your permission, I'd like to continue the negotiations, because we need to make sure that the building, if indeed it has to go to approval for sale to you, to the Board of Finance, and to the public at large, that they know we've done all our due diligence and we're maximizing the best price we can as we're the seller of the property.
Yep, I had a
Mike?
really off-the-wall question, and it's loaded, as usual. Do you foresee any problems with the zone change?
The zone change, I'm not
or the
familiar with
use
the zone
change.
I'm sorry?
So if it's zone residential,
yes,
you have to have it changed?
Right. We would do it under something called 830G, which is a zoning process.
So from a town perspective, do you see our town as friendly to do business with? And I'm really asking.
It certainly has been. It certainly has been. We actually were very happy with the support we got from this town for our
So you
Barton
don't
Commons
foresee any
project.
bumps in the road with some economic development?
Well, I think what we foresee is a long permitting process, because that's typically what is required: traffic studies, all kinds of impact studies, and probably someone from the public voicing concerns, et cetera, et cetera. So, that's something that we're used to doing. If we end up being successful, we're happy. Hopefully you're happy. If for some reason, it doesn't turn out, then we just have to walk away.
To quote another mayor, I think we're getting into the weeds.
Yeah.
Still Meadow, is that something that we're discussing? We're just giving you permission to continue?
Just permission. Any other discussion? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Katie?
Move to accept the Freedom of Information Policy and Procedure Manual.
So this is what we've talked about before. Sorry. So basically, to continue on with our policy.
Do we need to move the previous one? Do we have to
Yes.
do a motion and
No.
continue negotiating? Okay.
No.
Michael, you got that one?
So basically, this just continues on with our, with our objectives of transparency, especially when it comes to FOI, which is the Freedom of Information Act. So this basically is just a policy for our employees and commission members. We've done FOI workshops for them. This just basically talks about when they do get an FOI request, how it's going to just be handled. Any discussion? There was a motion, was there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Okay, Recycling Center. Move to approve the creation of a committee to review the policies, procedures, and fee structure of the Recycling Center. Said committee would consist of 5 members and would be for 1 year in duration, with reporting back to Town Council quarterly.
Second.
So, I was just going to say, one of the things at our last Town Council meeting, there were questions pertaining to this recycling center. Is it self-sustaining? There was some conjecture as to where it was or where it wasn't. So we had a recycling committee prior to a few years ago. I've asked for it to be reinstituted so that we can bring back to the council on a timely fashion kind of our fee structure, what's going on the recycling center. I know Katie was on it prior to. I know former Councilman Wargo was. So that's why I'm asking for the creation of the subcommittee. Paul?
So at the last meeting, we discussed the new fee structure, which would be effective July 1st. And I thought we were going to be provided with an analysis showing that the increase in revenues was going to cover all employee salaries, overtime, benefits, including health insurance, liability insurance, workman's comp, pension, and all the costs of the annual maintenance of equipment, the supplies, gas, and then our actual tipping cost, to show that our revenues will cover that. And to date, we have not received that additional information. So
No.
will we be getting that before the
Yes.
fees go into effect July 1st?
Yes.
Okay.
Including staff costs, correct?
Yeah.
So now I'm confused, and I apologize because I wasn't at the last meeting. So if we can get that without a committee, why are we forming the committee?
So the committee is moving forward. We can study the fee structures moving forward. We can study how we operate it moving forward. It was mentioned that we had some reductions in some fees, uncovering the fact that we may or may not be totally 100% self-reliant down there. So we need to kind of take a second look.
Okay, thank you.
Mike?
Back to Lisa's point earlier about all these committees, we keep adding to them. It's almost like we need a spreadsheet breakdown of committee and the task and where they are, just because it's hard for us to keep track. And I don't know if that's something that can be possibly done through your office or not, but just, you know, list all the committees we created, the tasks we're trying to do, and the progress they're making towards those tasks, just so we have something to look at. And, you know, as we said with the trail committee, you know, we aren't even sure where they're at, and they spent a lot of money, so it'd be nice to see something that we can look at quickly either before meetings or and get them report here more on a regular basis than they have been.
It's like a project plan. Yeah.
I will say with this, the recycling, the goal from the past committee, which I was on for quite some time, we revamped many things along with Mike and Bob, who was attending many of our meetings before he was in the current position. We had thought it was a great idea to just do it once a quarter, to sit down and talk about what was going on, because we were so intimately into what was going on there, and it affects a lot of people in the public, seniors. And the past mayor didn't get around to it, I guess. I don't know, they didn't think it was a good idea, but this would be more of a oversight. I don't know what else to call it.
Oversight guide. It's a steering committee.
Yeah, and just to see what's going on, to monitor, bring questions from the public. There's a lot of that because this is a very public-centric process, and then report back to the council once per quarter to say things are good or tipping fees are up and here's how this is being handled or whatever. That's not to remove that Bob or Mike Zarba would still maintain their reporting schedule with us. I would not want that to change. This is just strictly a I don't know, oversight, steering, whatever. Yeah. And that's how I see it as a past member and how I would look at it going forward. So if that helps any to describe it.
So kind of back to Paul's question. So is the committee's first task to then bring the financials forward that were asked for at the last town
I
council?
look at that as the belonging to the recycling center director. That was owed to us.
Okay.
We asked for it, and realizing we're not to July yet. But that's why I said this committee was never, and I don't think should be put in a position to report for them. That is up to them. This is basically to go over, talk about ideas. We met with some people from DEEP and learned about new things. We reached out to other towns to see what people were doing. I mean, a lot has happened over the last, well, that was now over 4 years ago when we started. But it's just one of those sort of entities that, because it's so public-centric, and a lot of things change, you know, recycling is such a big thing now, and it takes a little bit of the, I don't want to say, it doesn't take anything away from what they're doing, it just brings it out for us as not involved in it to look at it and say, you know, how's it going?
So here's what it sounds like. They're still accountable, the recycling center, for the day-to-day operations, the fee structure recommendation, but then this committee would have the time to do external benchmarking, public outreach, and be more of an external focus to bring that back to the recycle folks. So when they set their fee structure, there's a feeling that we're getting all that we can out of that.
As an example, the current update that was done, had this committee been in existence, we would have gone over it with them.
And they used to do that.
Yes, that's exactly what we did.
It was helpful.
And it was. And it's only, you know, to provide another viewpoint. And
I'm good.
No, I wouldn't suggest doing it again. But these people, that we work very well together, and all 5 of us wanted to do it on a quarterly basis. So I think it'll be all right.
Thank you.
So just to go on Lisa's point, so you guys are going to be sitting down obviously with them and going over more efficiency, cost structure, and then you can do suggestions, and then you come back to us, and then you
once
say,
a quarter report back. It doesn't change what the recycling center says to us now.
Right.
It doesn't involve that. not to say that we might talk with them about something that they're gonna report.
Suggestions on making it
Yeah.
more efficient or
Yeah,
partial. Okay.
yeah, I mean, they're doing a good job
Yep.
of that, but there's always room for more.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Okay. Move the appointments and reappointments to boards, commissions, and committees as follows. Alarm Appeals Board, Maxwell S. Pillar, unaffiliated, replacing Thomas Sprick, 5/14/2018 to 11/30/2018. Housing Partnership, appointment of Walter Bayer, Democrat, filling a vacancy, the town council position on this committee, 5/14/2018 to 11/30/2019. Appointment of Leonardo Gio, Democrat, filling the vacancy for local business, 5/14/2018 to 11/30/2018. I just want to ask, is that a typo, or is it correct that the town council vacancy being filled by Walter lasts 1 year longer than the rest?
Yes.
Yes, that is correct. Just let the record show that. Bike and Trail Committee has been tabled. Local Emergency Planning Committee, appointment Stephen P. McCarthy, filling a vacancy on NARA, it's filled by NARA. 5/14/2018, 11/30/2018. Reappointment of David Grossenbacher, Northville Fire Department, January 13, 2018 to January 11, 2021. Recycling Committee, appointment of Catherine Francis, 5/14/2018, May 13, 2019, which will remain the same duration for the following appointments. Jay Lewin, Republican, Frankie Wargo, Democrat, Barbara M. Wolf, Democrat, Beth A. Falder, Republican.
Second.
Any discussion? Mike?
Back to my point, what does the Alarm Appeals Board do?
So the Alarm Appeals Board, what they are going to do is when an alarm, for a better use, an alarm goes off 4 times, they're going to end up getting a citation. So there's going to be a need for an Alarms Appeal Board when they come to ask for redress. So we have to have an appeal board for that.
You obviously haven't had any false alarms.
I have had all false alarms at the club, so not that I wanted to get to the appeal board.
Mr. Gio was kind enough to wait here tonight, so could we at
Come
least
on,
say
of
thanks
course.
to him for volunteering or giving our
Yep.
condolences?
I know Leo.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you.
And Leo also is on our senior center, and I know he also wanted to talk a little bit about something else besides that.
It's a perfect time.
So if we could just
Oh, yeah, sure. I wasn't
make
sure.
this,
so-
yep, make this motion
I
to.
just want to make sure we recognize
Oh,
he's
yeah.
here because he said it.
Motion on,
What was the, this brought back to 113, why is that? Was that,
we just didn't have the.
doesn't have it,
We
okay.
didn't have the rest of the appointments. I
The
guess.
113.
On the local emergency.
The reason why we're going to the 113 is, I believe that's new charter, right?
Sorry.
Local emergency planning, why we're at 113.
On Dave Grossenbacher, his term. is
Diane, do you know why
retro.
we're at 113?
Okay.
18 on that?
He's replacing somebody?
Yes, it's a reappointment for him,
Oh, it's a reappointment.
and his term must have expired on January 13th.
His term
And he
expired,
served
so
January
reappoint.
It's probably a 3-year term.
Yeah, so it's
I'm trying to uniform the term of the charter.
Thank you.
okay, so we have a motion,
Any other discussion?
we have a second?
Yep. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Before we adjourn? Yes?
Carolyn, the director of the senior center, just wanted me to invite you all to our grand reopening. You know, we had the expansion on the senior center done recently. It's coming to a close, so it's going to be on June 8th. You're welcome. Of course, we'll have some refreshments. We hope to see you all there.
Thanks, Leo.
You're welcome there. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. Oh, you put it on a doily, thank you. Yeah.
Sir? Oh, look at nice paper.
That's Jasmine's work, not mine.
See?
What else? I know you're interested.
This is where we expand.
All that grant funding, that's where it goes. Carport.
I don't know what you joke about.
Very
that.
nice. Oh my God, it was so long.
So, do you guys have any questions?
Do you have any questions for Leo?
No, it looks great.
It does look great. It's awesome.
Yes, it does.
Looks really
Yes,
good.
it
So
does.
they were cleaning up. They took all the fencing down today. They're trying to figure out something with the drain, by the sidewalk there. I know you do, Mike, I know you do. So anyway, it's all good, so we hope to see you there. Thank you.
Leo, thank you, and thank the staff for all you guys do for our seniors.
Absolutely, happy to do it.
Excellent, thank you.
Take care.
Motion to
Anything else?
adjourn, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Can I just add something? Can I do new business, or is that not allowed?
They have to withdraw their motions.
Withdraw your motion, please.
I can email you, Pete, it's up to you.
We got a second? There was a second.
Yeah, I seconded it.
Or
just email Pete, so it's
That's fine.
I'll email Pete.
Okay,
We're good.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.